All right, 25 minutes before 9 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in this Wednesday morning. I got some news to deliver to you. Robin McBlain and I will take the news from around the world, around the nation, around the state, and around town, and we'll shorten it for you so that you can hear as many news stories in these 25 minutes as we can possibly squeeze. We'll also tell you the news agencies we're getting the stories from. That way you can look up the story and read the details if you so desire. Typically, we get between 20 and 25 stories into this segment, and the first story does come from the Associated Press. Authorities say at least 4 people were killed and several more suffered serious injuries when a passenger bus overturned on Interstate 10 in Southern California near the Arizona state line. Caltrans spokeswoman Terry Castinga says the crash occurred shortly after 2 a.m. this morning, their time, just east of Blythe, where a big rig jackknifed and spilled a load of steel pipes into lanes. She said the bus either swerved to avoid the pipes or it struck the pipes and overturned onto the shoulder. Castinga says 4 people are dead, but there could be more fatalities. Emergency airships have transported several passengers with critical injuries to hospitals. Castinga says all lanes of the interstate will be closed for several hours. Again, this is in the state of California at the Arizona-California state line.
Governor Rick Scott has a new budget on his desk and a couple of weeks to decide how much of it he aims to keep. At $77.1 billion, this is the largest budget in Florida history. That gives the governor plenty of potential targets for his line item veto, and he's never been reluctant to use that power. Over the past 3 years, Rick Scott has vetoed more than $1 billion worth of projects. Florida Tax Watch will be assembling its annual turkey list, a compilation of projects that Tax Watch says it's worthy of a veto. At the same time, state lawmakers will be appealing to the governor or his advisors to spare their hometown projects from the axe, reported by the Florida News Network.
And the next story is kind of the same story we were talking about from 7:35 till 8. In this version of it is coming from Fox News. Republican establishment favorites dominated virtually across the board in the season's biggest primary day so far, with Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell fending off a challenge from his right in Kentucky and Tea Party-aligned candidates falling short in several other states. McConnell was able to easily best Tea Party-backed challenger Matt Bevin, a businessman who entered the race with high hopes of knocking off the Senate's most powerful Republican. Bevin, though, struggled through a string of controversies and under a withering barrage of McConnell ads. The GOP leader won by a roughly 2-to-1 margin. His tougher contest will come in the fall when he faces Democrat Allison Lundergan Grimes.
What's in a name? A lot, according to European trade officials who want American cheesemakers to stop using names like Parmesan and Asiago. These are names the Europeans want to protect because they say Parmesan cheese, for instance, should come from Parma, Italy. Don't tell that to American cheesemakers. They say many of their cheeses are indeed superior to the European varieties. Wisconsin alone produces 3 billion pounds of cheese a year. Much of it is exported. This could be the beginning of a very ugly food fight, reported by MSNBC.
And from Fox News, the Federal Communications Commission says Sprint will pay $7.5 million in the largest do-not-call settlement to date for making unwanted telemarketing calls and sending texts to consumers. The FCC said that Sprint will also put a 2-year plan in place to make sure it complies with commission requirements designed to prevent people from receiving unwanted marketing calls. The settlement follows an earlier one in 2011 in which Sprint paid $400,000 due to similar complaints. Sprint Corporation says the issues with Do Not Call were due to technical and inadvertent human errors, which the company reported to the FCC. The company, based in Overland Park, Kansas, also says that it has made significant capital investments to improve its Do Not Call text oversight and compliance. And again, that's from Fox News.
And this is a story we were speaking about earlier this morning. Tonight show host Jimmy Fallon said this week that he is is bringing The Tonight Show to Orlando for taping during a very auspicious week at Universal Orlando Resorts. The show is being taped there during the week of June 16th to June 19th, which is also the week that Universal Orlando is launching a massive media preview of its new attraction, The Wizarding World of Harry Potter, Dragon Alley. Fallon promises that the events of the week, which will be home-based on Soundstage 20 at Universal Orlando's backlot, will include a first look at the new Wizarding World attraction. That comes on top of a roster of A-list guests for the show during the course of the week. Fallon has told his audience before that he would take the show on the road as soon as he could. Neither the timing nor the location for this first week away from New York surprise observers of media and pop culture. Fallon appeals to a younger, more hip demographic that includes relatively youthful and energetic families, and that's very much in line with the demographics Universal Orlando is reaching with the Central Florida park. The taping in Orlando will also build on the existing enthusiasm for the attraction and add to the momentum this opening is expected to generate. From a business perspective, Universal officials are keenly aware of the prospects for a good balance sheet. Both The Tonight Show and Universal Orlando are part of the Comcast family, and what's good for one property will be good for the other, reported by the Florida News Network.
And from CNN, apparently dancing to a song about happiness in the nation of Iran can get you arrested. 6 Iranians are behind bars after they appeared in a fan video set to the Pharrell Williams song titled Happy, which is an American hit song that has sold millions of downloads worldwide. Tehran Police Chief Hossein Sajinian ordered the arrests of the 3 men and 3 women because they helped make an, quote, obscene video clip that offended the public morals and was released in cyberspace, unquote. That, according to the Iranian student news agency. Farrell himself denounced the arrests. His quote is, "It is beyond sad that these kids were arrested for trying to spread happiness," unquote. Farrell is a Grammy Award winner. He made that comment on his Facebook page. Just like in Farrell's original video, the Iranian fan version features a montage of men and women dancing to the song in a variety of settings.
20 states have signed on to a lawsuit challenging the Affordable Care Act on the grounds that it violated the origination clause by starting in the Senate instead of the House. The brief, filed May 15th by Texas Attorney General Greg Abbott and endorsed by another 19 attorney generals, comes in support of a lawsuit filed by Dr. Stephen Hetz of Houston, Texas, now before the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. The Hetz case is one of 2 lawsuits seeking to overturn the ACA, also known as Obamacare, on the grounds that the bill originated in the Senate. Our Constitution requires all bills for raising revenue to originate in the House, reported by the Washington Times.
And this next story is from CBS. This is what it says. Climate change is putting the Statue of Liberty, Ellis Island, Cape Canaveral, and 27 other historic U.S. sites at risk, according to a new report from the Union of Concerned Scientists. Other sites threatened include Boston's Historic District, St. Augustine, Florida, Mesa Verde National Park, and the Cesar Chavez National Monument, as well as cultural heritage sites in Hawaii. The first permanent English settlement in the Americas, Jamestown, could be completely submerged by rising seas by the end of this century, according to the report.
And this is part 2 to the previous story about the Affordable Care Act. Former Vice President Dick Cheney accused President Barack Obama of ignoring the law and skating up to the edge of violating the Constitution. This is a quote, "I really feel as though Barack Obama is ignoring the law in many cases and going far beyond what it was ever intended. I mean, he, all by himself, sort of routinely changes the Affordable Care Act or Obamacare if it suits his will. I think much of what's been done does in fact stake up to the edge of violating the Constitution in terms of the way he's interpreted his executive power." Cheney did take care to mention that he is a big advocate of the strong executive office, but Cheney thinks the president has exceeded that limit, reported by UPI.
And the next story is from CNN Money. Billionaires Charles and David Koch appear to be set against the state of Michigan helping out the bankrupt city of Detroit. A political group backed by the Koch brothers wants to stop the state from providing $195 million in aid. The money would be used to limit deep cuts to retirees' pensions and avoid selling off the artwork in the city-owned museum. If the state chapter of Americans for Prosperity is successful, it would derail a series of deals that would allow Detroit to emerge from the nation's largest municipal bankruptcy case later this year. The group is writing letters to legislators vowing to campaign against those who vote yes. A vote for the package could come as soon as this week or as early as next week. Scott Hagerstrom, Michigan director of Americans for Prosperity, said his group wants Detroit to sell its artwork and other assets and dump traditional defined benefit pension plans in favor of 401k type plans. Detroit has behaved like this for 30 years, Hagerstrom said. Politicians that won't change their behavior if they keep getting bailouts from the hardworking taxpayers of Michigan, unquote. The package of bills has the support of leadership of the Republican-controlled Michigan legislature, as well as Republican Governor Rick Snyder.
And the Florida News Network is reporting that seatbelt use saves thousands of lives across the country every year. That is the safety message that is getting heavy reinforcement across the state of Florida through the offices of a seasonal campaign known as Click It or Ticket. Law enforcement personnel have beefed up traffic enforcement as part of a Click It or Ticket safety campaign, and that campaign kicked off this week. The national campaign will continue through the Memorial Day holiday, traditionally a busy extended weekend on the nation's roadways. The Click It or Ticket enforcement campaign will continue through June 1st in the state of Florida. Not wearing a seatbelt is now the kind of infraction where law enforcement can stop you if they see you are not wearing one. Prior to Florida's seatbelt law, which changed the level of infraction, you could still be cited for not wearing a seatbelt, but had to have been stopped for another infraction first. Television public service announcements have gone to great length to remind drivers that personnel have been trained to spot when a person is faking it with a seatbelt. Getting caught without a seatbelt will lead to getting a fine, and law enforcement officials say they hope the financial incentive to buckle up will result in more lives saved in Florida. And this again reported by the Florida News Network.
And from ABC News, investigators are combing through surveillance footage and have subpoenaed credit card records in an attempt to locate a 19-year-old college student who vanished from Chicago's O'Hare International Airport shortly after checking in for a flight. Hai Min Choi, who also goes by the name of Joseph, was scheduled to take a United Airlines flight from Chicago to Greensboro, North Carolina on Saturday evening. He checked in his luggage for the flight at around 3 p.m., but never boarded the plane and did not rebook another flight, according to a police press release. This is completely and totally out of character. He has never done something like this before. He is honestly the epitome of a perfect child. That's a statement from Choi's sister, Catherine, in an interview with ABC News. She went on to say, quote, "He goes to church every Sunday. He doesn't really even go out to party or anything like that. He likes to read. He was president of the chess club in high school," unquote. Catherine Choi said her brother was attending the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign on a full scholarship and had a very high grade point average. He did not have any known friends in the Chicago area or gave any indication he was not returning home to North Carolina, according to his sister.
Former Treasury Secretary Tim Geithner said he would not investigate. Former Treasury Secretary Tim Geithner said that he would not invest in Bitcoin, even though he does not have a full grasp of how it works. This is his quote, "No, I wouldn't," unquote. He said this when asked whether he would acquire Bitcoin during an interview with Fusion's Jorge Ramos. "It depends on what your objective is. As a way to save money, as an investment vehicle? No, it's a very volatile thing. As a way to make payments, it's got some risks because its value fluctuates hugely over time. So it's got a lot of challenges. Bitcoin has been around since 2009. Over the last year, the online currency has drawn tons of media attention. There's even a street near Cleveland where you can pay for everything with Bitcoin," reported by ABC.
This is also from ABC News. A new multi-million-dollar yacht capsized when it was launched in Anacortes, Washington, dumping 6 people into the water. Wade Benda, the yacht's mechanic, was on board the vessel Sunday after he and a team spent nearly 3 years building the boat when it suddenly flipped over. The crew was reportedly going to deliver the yacht to its new owner when the maiden voyage went terribly wrong. I'm relieved that I'm here on the ground, and I just want to thank the good Lord above that I'm here. It was just a scary moment. That's a comment from Benda, who was speaking to KOMO TV in Seattle. The cause of the incident is under investigation. However, Benda says he thinks the boat's stabilizer hit some rocks when it first rolled near the ramp. He told KOMO they then tried to thrust the yacht into deeper water, but to no avail. All 6 people on board were rescued.
When was the last time you took a moment to really look at an eggshell? Artist Jess Landau took notice and, instead of discarding the shells like she had so many times before, transformed the little shells into works of art. Landau's unusual artistic process began after a lifelong friend committed suicide in November of 2013. The abrupt tragedy and the artist's subsequent attempts to come to terms with the loss led Landau to explore her experiences and emotions through nonverbal expression. Jess uses liquid emulsion to turn the inside surface of the shell into a photograph. Liquid emulsion is the liquid chemical that makes paper light sensitive, allowing images to be projected onto them through a darkroom printing process. Landau's portraits, as detailed as they are delicate, communicate just how intertwined life's beauty and its fragility are. The nude subjects in all their unclothed vulnerability appear almost as if they're about to be born from the egg they reside in, reported by the Huffington Post.
And this next story is from the Associated Press. Over the past few months, the new U.S. education standard known as the Common Core has attracted its fair share of negative attention by opponents, but Florida Republican State Representative Charles Van Zandt took the Common Core critique to a new level by claiming that the educational initiative promoted by the Obama administration will turn children homosexual. Van Zandt made the comments at an Orlando education conference back in March, but the video of his remarks went viral yesterday. Van Zandt told his audience that the American Institutes for Research, also known as AIR, that implements the Common Core in Florida, quote, will promote double-mindedness in state education and attract every one of your children to become as homosexual as they possibly can, unquote. Please go on their website, click the link to what they're doing with youth, and you will see what their agenda really is, Van Zandt implored his audience in Orlando. They were promoting as hard as they can any youth that is interested in the LGBT agenda, unquote. Van Zandt added, quote, I'm sorry to report to you, but you need to know. I'm sorry to report that to you, but you need to know, unquote. Van Zandt is hardly the only vocal critic of the education initiative. Conservative radio host Glenn Beck recently called the Common Core evil and equated the standards with slavery, saying that if you can no longer critically think, then you can do whatever they want. I mean, this is slavery. They are breeding an entire new generation of slaves. That's a quote from Glenn Beck, heard here on WOCA every afternoon.
John Crossman was a 16-year-old boy seaman aboard HMS Belfast as it bombarded the Normandy coast on D-Day. He saw sights that day that no man, let alone a boy, should ever have to witness. This is his quote, "The main feeling I remember is one of awe, seeing all the landing craft and the hundreds of aircraft overhead." He said this yesterday as he returned to the Belfast for the official start of the D-Day 70th anniversary events. "And I saw some terrible things. I remember American paratroopers being dropped into the sea and drowning, and in the days after D-Day, I saw HMS Swift broken in two by a mine and the two parts of the ship sticking out of the water and sinking. I can still see it now." But he is quick to say that to all of the D-Day veterans, you won a victory of good over evil, reported by The Telegraph.
Yeah, I sure did. The next story is from the Associated Press. Delaware police have cited the driver of a tractor trailer that overturned on a highway ramp, releasing millions of swarming bees near Newark. The ramp to Interstate 95 reopened this morning, more than 12 hours after the rig carrying an estimated 16 million to 20 million honeybees from Florida to Maine crashed. Police cited the driver, 55-year-old Adolfo Guerra of Miami, for unsafe shifting of load or cargo. Police say Guerra and 2 passengers were taken to Christiana Hospital with minor injuries from the crash and 50 to 100 stings from the bees. There were reports of passersby also being stung. State Police spokesman Sergeant Paul Shavik says bee handlers worked with firefighters to spray water to disperse the bees as authorities used a honeybee swarm removal plan for the first time.
Wow.
Wow.
On the eve of a critical Senate vote and an under-court order, the Obama administration signaled it will publicly reveal a secret memo describing its legal justification for using drones to kill U.S. citizens suspected of terrorism overseas. 2 administration officials told the Associated Press that the Justice Department has decided not to appeal a Court of Appeals ruling requiring disclosure of a redacted version of the memo under the Freedom of Information Act. The officials spoke on condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to speak publicly about the matter, reported by The Guardian.
This next story might make you cry. I'm getting it from ABC News. Spider-Man, Thor, Iron Man, and several other superheroes stood as pallbearers to honor a 5-year-old who died. His name was Braden Denton from Newton County, Indiana. Braden Denton had been combating brain cancer since he was diagnosed on April 20th of 2013. His mother, Stacy Denton, described his battle saying he stopped completely walking. Then we got through that hurdle. Then he started not being able to eat or drink. And during every treatment, Denton said her son always had some superhero with him. He died on May 8th. To commemorate her son's bravery, she planned a funeral fit for her little superhero. She said, quote, "I felt like I was honoring him in a way that if he was looking down on us, he would be happy," unquote. Among the pallbearers, Stacy Denton's brother, dressed as Thor, and Brad Denton, Stacy's cousin, dressed as Iron Man. Denton said Braden has been a huge superhero fan, his favorite being Spider-Man, since he was 3 years old. Since then, he has seen Spider-Man on Broadway and even got to meet the superhero in Chicago. And the photograph of these grown men carrying the 5-year-old in a casket, all dressed as superheroes, is just sad. But you know, I guess that's what she thought. You know, I don't know.
The federal government is piecing together a sweeping national biosurveillance system that will give bureaucrats near real-time access to Americans' private medical information in the name of national security. This is according to Twyla Bass, a public health nurse and co-founder of the Citizens Council for Health Freedom. The Department of Health and Human Services Office of the Assistant Secretary for Preparedness and Response is currently seeking public comment on a 52-page draft of the proposed National Health Security Strategy 2015 to 2015 to 2018, reported by CNS News.
And from Fox News, it is widely used nationwide as a germ-killing ingredient in soaps, deodorants, and even toothpaste, but it is being banned in the state of Minnesota. Governor Mark Dayton on Friday signed a bill to make Minnesota the first state to prohibit the use of triclosan in most retail consumer hygiene products. The Minnesota House and Senate passed it earlier last week because of health and environmental concerns about the chemical. The ban is not due to take effect until January 1st of 2017, but one of its lead sponsors, State Senator John Marty, predicted that the odds are good that most manufacturers will phase out triclosan by then anyway. And that's all the time we have for Newsbites this morning. We do have to move on, and remember, we do this each weekday morning if you want to catch up on a bunch of news, and hopefully some of it serves you in some way. Robin, how many stories today?
23.
23. All right, we'll take a little break. We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.